welcome to Lawmakers. Now that I've got past that, let's talk about House Speaker John Burns' school safety package. That includes everything from, and we're going to show it up on the screen, creating a student safety database to increase penalties for anyone who makes threats at schools, and a whole lot of other things that you see up on the screen. And I know you were part of putting that package together. So talk about your part in all of this and what it's all about.
Don, I was proud to work with Speaker Burns' office, Majority Leader Chuck Efstration, on the terroristic threats part of the bill. I really appreciate the leadership of the Speaker in the immediate aftermath of that tragedy at Appalachia to formulate a response to make sure that kind of a tragedy wouldn't happen again. And I remember being at UGA during 9/11 when that tragedy happened. I remember the federal government made sure there are no barriers to information in existence after 9/11, post 9/11 world. And I look at what the Speaker has done, and Representative Holt Persinger, the sponsor of the bill, and you've got GEMA, Georgia Emergency Management, who just did a wonderful job during the snowstorms. GEMA, Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, the State Board of Education, local law enforcement, our local schools. They will now be able to share information. If you look at that tragedy in Appalachia, that young man had some cries for help and some bad behavior, threats of violence, but his new school didn't know about that as much as they needed to, and that will not happen again under this bill.
Yeah, so there's a database that kind of follows the students, follows the schools too, in a way, some of the things that are happening.
That's right. And this bill, which is 50 pages long, there was a lot of care taken to make sure that all the legal boxes are checked. There are a lot of federal and other educational and healthcare privacy issues that are addressed in this bill to make sure schools and law enforcement have the information they need to intervene when there are threats of violence to make sure they do not escalate into another tragedy.
Okay, it's pretty comprehensive. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I very much appreciated a multifaceted approaching it from different angles. This is a very complicated issue, but I think we have to address the elephant in the room. There, as far as I know, is not one thing in this bill that has been proposed about common sense gun safety reform, right? Guns are the #1 killer of children. They kill more children than cancer. They kill more children than car wrecks, right? So for us to, in the days in the aftermath of the most deadly school shooting in Georgia history, for us to not even address gun safety, I think it's a dereliction of duty.
Okay, there is something that deals with at least lock boxes or some way of.
Yes, Donna, the Speaker in the immediate aftermath of Appalachia said we do need to do something on the gun component of that tragedy. House Bill 79, Dr. Martin Newton, a doctor and representative from the Augusta area, has a gun safe storage and gun safety education tax credit and incentive bill. And also, if you look at the bill, there are a lot of provisions in there to make sure that the students who are having mental health and other violence issues do not get to the point of bringing a gun to school. There's also anonymous tip app, which works well in Gwinnett to make sure that if a student brings a gun or is otherwise threatening violence, that is reported immediately to law enforcement so they can intervene, and that's worked around the state. So it honors the Second Amendment, but it brings all the know-how from law enforcement, mental health, and other important areas to make sure these tragedies don't happen again. It's something that could pass the House, the Senate, get signed by the governor, and meet legal scrutiny in the courts.
But you still don't think that's enough. What would you like to see?
Yeah, with all due respect, I think that's a half measure. I mean, when you have a baby that's born at a hospital, you don't get a tax credit for making sure you have a car seat for that baby. You have to, under the law, have a car seat for that baby, and the hospital won't give you your baby unless you do, right? So we can have the tax credit. The tax credit is fine. There is a bill that was proposed 2 years ago, the Pediatric Health Safe Storage Bill, which was proposed by Dr. Michelle Au, Representative Dr. Michelle Au, which basically says, look, if you have a firearm in your house and you have a minor who also lives in that house, you have to properly secure that firearm. I mean, this is a really moderate conservative measure that we would place on parents to ensure that their children are safe. It seems like it's every other day that there is a news story about a toddler who finds a gun in a house and kills themselves. or permanently injures themselves. There is so much that we can do to prevent these very foreseeable tragedies from happening, and tax incentives just don't go far enough.
Well, I'm sorry, did you want to add something to that?
Absolutely. Donna, this bill focuses on the problem. It focuses on the tragedy at Appalachia. It learns the lessons from Appalachia, and it responds to it in a way that will prevent it from happening again at our schools. I come from Gwinnett County, the state's largest school system, and we take school safety very personally. I really appreciate what Gwinnett County School Police have done to keep Gwinnett schools safe. In a lot of ways, it takes some of those Gwinnett County know-how and measures and takes it statewide to prevent tragedies from happening. So I think the bill, which is very lengthy, it's one of the best in the country on school safety, and it addresses what happened at Appalachia, and will make sure it doesn't happen again.
And there are parts of it you do like.
Yeah, sure. No, I think we need to have a multifaceted approach, but I think we have to deal with the gun issue. And as not just as a legislator, but as a Georgia parent, I know that I want to see our elected officials dealing with this central issue, which is the proliferation of guns. I will tell you that my daughter, when she was in pre-K, her very first day of school in Georgia ever, her school went on lockdown because there was a man outside her school with a rifle. This was her very first experience with school ever. This is a problem throughout Georgia, and we have to have the courage to address it head on.
Okay. I think we're going to certainly be talking about both of these bills. Well, there's several on your side in this one. I want to change gears a little bit and talk about tort reform, because I have you both here and you're both attorneys. Of course, Governor Brian Kemp calls it tort reform. It's certainly dealing with civil liability lawsuits and large jury awards in Georgia. So I want to get your opinion, both of you. Get you, Representative Draper.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it has to be refined. It's going to be refined a lot before it actually gets to us, so it's a little bit early to say. But generally speaking, what I'm looking for, I acknowledge that there is a problem with premiums, and they're too high. I think every Georgian feels that. But what I want to know is that the proposals, the solutions that we are proposing, rather, that they fix the problem that we are aiming to solve, right? Is there a line between what we are offering and the solutions? And if that's the case with this bill, I think that'll be a good thing. And if it's not, we need to reevaluate.
Yeah, so you're in favor of at least looking at this. The good thing about this is a conversation is taking place, right?
Absolutely.